Hey folks, Nick Tockert here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get going, let's talk about what makes this program possible. We have three basic sources of income that allow me to do what I do, excluding, of course, my lovely wife, man. Blessed is she. First, we are supported digitally from our sponsor, IndieCD.org. That's the Independent Creator Directory, your one-stop shop for the best and the brightest authors, musicians, creatives all over the world can come together. And if you have a dream, if you have a goal, if you have a mission, you can help make it possible. So if you're an author, we've got writers, we've got, some people want ghostwriters or collaborations. We've got flatters for comic book artists. We've got editors and proofreaders. We can help you make your dream possible. And if you're a creative yourself looking to be hosted for a one-time fee of $40, IndieCD.org will give you a place to be safe online amid a community of other creators. It's a really great program. We're also made possible by sales of, and I have to move a couple things because I'm in the process of reorganizing, the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear. Part of my ongoing, yes, indeed, ongoing series of Western martial arts manuals designed to bring the basics of Western martial arts to anyone who wants to see them. So, because I have a passion that all art is for everyone. Art is for everyone. That being visual arts, literary arts, and martial arts. I see that all as and it's all under the same envelope. And I am sorry if I'm a little out of it. I had a bit of a allergic reaction earlier today. I am okay. However, it did cause my throat to get a little problematic. So my voice may be cutting in and out. It's been doing that a lot lately. It's just part of the season as everything starts blooming. Sometimes I have a bad bit. Now, I also want to talk about the most important people. Off in the Woods, Frog G, Ronald Rain, Bladed Thesis, Brian K. Morris, Cindy Kemp, and Steve Augusto. These six stalwarts are my current Patreon members, and these are the folks who give a small financial boon that allows me to do things like order swords and trainers to be able to review them, to let you know, is it really any quality? As anyone who was here last week, I still have to shoot. I did this lovely, amazing review on this katana that I still need to reach out to Sword Sage and really recommend that as a low-cost review item. He needs to look into it because it's very nice. I wish we would have had that when he was local and we were sparring. But my Patreon members get early access to any scripted videos I do, special rights to basically, if they want me to make a video on a subject, I will make a video on a subject. It's just that easy. Now, I keep trying to give them special privileges and, Patreon-only things, and they are coming, whether they like it or not. But my patron members insist that I keep my mission of giving free and low-cost martial arts training to as many as possible and helping build you guys up to being what you could be. So it is something I am delighted to do. Today's episode, we are going to go over what you guys have been up to. We're going to talk a little bit about what I've been up to, the strengths, the weaknesses, etc. in this year's return to functionality, building back up from being down. We're also going to talk about some interesting things, and we have to talk about putting your money where your mouth is. So we'll get into that after I get through the chat. We've got some folks coming in through the door, and I appreciate all of you. This will be ending at an hour. This won't be a long one. Obviously, my voice and the throat that hurts with it is going to impede me just a bit. So I am going to be gentle about it as possible. Hence the change in my appearance. I am fresh out of the shower and dealing with the ramifications thereof, whereas for my hair gets near water. this happens. But before we get any further, let's go into the chat. We'll see how you guys are doing, and we'll talk about what's going on with everybody. And then we will get into the commentary. Foxy, you're first today. Yes, you are, dear. It's good to see you. Ablated Thesis. I'm under you. I like this spot. Well, I'm glad you're having fun. Green rooming already. If you are, don't worry. There'll be a lot of that tonight. I've been told the green room will be spicy, but that's neither here nor there. Whatever do you mean? It was an innocent comment. Okay, you guys are having fun then. And Kitty says, oh no, allergies are no fun. No, and it's on the list of things I don't usually talk about. I have a staggering number of allergies. And my screen just went black for a second. So that we might have some interference due to weather. Let me see. Let me get that running real quick. I want to check something. Okay, I'll let that do its thing. How is our network? Network is not good, friends. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. And if the weather makes my system unstable, then I will have to call it. But it hasn't yet, so I'm going to keep on trucking. And no, they are not. I got into something I didn't realize I got into, and that's why I've had a off-schedule shower. But like I said, we're going to keep trucking. If I seem a little out of it, that's why. Well, they are not. And oh, wait, before I go any further, it's good to see you, Kitty. We don't see you often, and it is always a privilege to have you come through the door. And no, they are not. And good evening, everyone. Good evening, Miss Saren. Miss Saren, amongst other things, is the wonderfully talented voice actress who is doing an audiobook version of my horror novel, Haints and Hellfire, which is actually quite good. Everybody seems to be enjoying it. It is set in the Appalachian Mountains, and you have dueling reporters trying to get the story of something killing the family of a small boy that's still stalking him. It gets real complicated real fast. Scare your pants off. I've heard good things, and her vocal talents are amazing. And I know that's way off topic for the show, but I'm feeling just a touch off topic myself. And everybody's greeting, and we're greeting, and we're greeting, and we're greeting. Oh, you're having a fair bit of snow too. I'm sorry. It was 65 here. And that means everything kind of simultaneously bloomed. 1 second. There we go. But yes, excuse me. We have very unseasonable weather and lots of storm fronts, so it's been a little rough. Snowing pretty good here. It's supposed to continue for the next couple hours. Well, thank you. I hope you stay warm, stay snuggled up, and enjoy each other's company on this. I believe, isn't this the Lunar New Year's Eve? We were going to go to town and actually procure some Chinese food, but I was not physically up to it, so we couldn't. And it looks like my net is hopping along now, so we should be good for a while. Well, folks, we have a little bit to talk about. One thing that I found interesting is this, and I will give you both options, but let me see if I can find it before here. I want to get this found. Oh, I bet that's under deal of the day. I bet it is. I bet that is under deal of the day. Oh, it's still there. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you about an item that's on sale right now at PHA, and I want to bring this up, so give me just a second. We'll do that one, I think. No, this one. Sorry. The Purple Heart Armory has a buckler, much like the other one I've used for a long time, but it is smaller. It is only 9 inches in diameter, so it is closer in functionality to my little wooden buckler, which means it's lighter for people who have weaknesses. They can't quite handle the weight of the full plastic one, which I can see the interest. However, on Purple Heart Armory, it is going for, I don't know if you can see that. Let me tinker this. There we go. It's going for $30 for the little one. And I do like that there is a graduated scale of their bucklers. But you can get the same buckler through Amazon for the same price right now without shipping and handling. So this is where it becomes difficult, because it would be my nature to spend a bit more if I were reviewing it and order it from PHA through the link in the bottom to see, how it goes. Although I don't see a lot of difference between the 9 and the 12. So I'm a little intrigued about this. And unfortunately, the 19 that I would love to acquire is roughly $80, and that's simply more than I can financially throw at a buckler that that gets into essentially being a center boss. But I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. And let's see. Kitty says, I'm usually around, but my adult classes end just as you start streaming, so I'm usually pretty wiped out by then. Oh, I can understand that. What are you taking? Or are you teaching? I'm always fascinated about the education people get. But we're glad to have you, and we appreciate you being around. So I want to talk to you guys about this. I want to let you know that this little sale is going on, because it's not bad if you don't have a buckler and you're looking for a smaller one that might be a bit lighter than the 12-inch, because some people have stated that the 12-inch has quite a bit of weight to it. Now, when we're talking shields, we need to think of a shield, especially a center boss or buckler, as as much as a weapon potentially as it is a defensive object. When you compare a round shield to, I'm sorry, not a round shield, they can both be round, but a center boss shield. So when you put your hand through, to a shield that you have strapped on, okay? What you'll find is a center boss is much more dynamic. You have a lot more flip to it. Now, a small buckler like the one that I was showing you there was used to very often and very favorably in the early Middle Ages as a guard. So what you would have is that would be essentially a mobile hand guard that would go with to protect the offside. So if your sword is here, you're running your buckler to try to defend the sword. If you look at things like Talhofer and 1.33, it keeps the world close up. It also, as a function, ensures that your center line is not as exposed. Because if you're fighting a single weapon, and we've talked about this a lot, we've talked about the center road, but we'll go back over it again. When you are fighting when you're fighting a single weapon, let me get something I can swing without. I'm still here. I've been moving things around a bit. Okay, if you have a single weapon, right? If your arms are closed, if you're Jediing it, whatever, you're going greatsword, you still have the same four. Oops, hit my thing. Bonk, bonk, bonk. Same four quadrants that you're blocking, right? Down a bit, make it a little easier for you. Pop, 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 pop. So, because of my angle, high inside, low outside, high outside, low inside. Right? Now, if you have two items of sticky goodness, which Lord knows I have plenty of. Actually, here, we'll just do this. Oh, I could even explain what I was talking about if I can find my other little buckler. All right. I'll go back to that in a second. I'm not going to be distracted, as distractible as I am. So we've got two reasonable weapons now, okay? Both have a high outside. Both have a low outside. They share a high inside, and they share a low inside. Of course, my low inside is basically below the camera view, but you get the idea. Now, the problem with that is if we are fighting with a classical, and this is the 1.33 trainer, it is one of the better trainers I have seen if you don't know what kind of sword you want. I have seen Christian over at Purple Heart Armory actually modify other swords, like the custom rigs he made me by drilling a hole through essentially the pommel piece and then riveting washers to add weight. It's something I am seriously tempted to do to mine. I'm also tempted, if I can find the right cup, to pull a cup down, and then I will be a much happier camper. But I digress. While you're fighting this kind of weapon, okay, while the crossguard does give fairly good control, okay, if you have a buckler, and I am figuring, if my math is right, that little buckler is not much bigger than this. You can actually bring it in and protect the exposed hand with the buckler. Now, because of the way I have to grip this buckler, this was made for me by my old sword instructor, it works a little more dynamically and a little different than a lot of them, but I can still get the full rotation. This is what's going to let you close that up, and it effectively gives you the ability to keep your center line defended. It simplifies a lot, and as you can see, it makes hand sniping much more difficult. Now, at this extreme, you have to do silly things like cross your arms and then rotate out. And 1.33 does get into that. So it is a fascinating look into very early swordsmanship where, relative, very early medieval swordsmanship, we'll put it that way. And we have to put European because there are many things, far earlier than European swordsmanship. But understanding how these weapons went together with the gear of the time lets you better understand why and how they did things, and then decide if that appeals or applies to why and how you do things. And I like understanding the whys, because there are a great many martial arts, especially when you look at what's been preserved in Chinese martial arts, where you don't get to know the whys. And that can be very confusing because, especially in Chinese martial arts, they go from the weapon out. So often they will try to teach you open-handed techniques that mirror or use the exact same motions as a weapon technique. The easiest version being, for me, parting the wild horse's mane, which is part of the 24 short form Yang 24 short form Tai Chi. And I know my sequencer broke those rules, but you get what I'm saying. And that when I saw that demonstrated the first time, I was delighted. I said, "Why are you so delighted? That's a sword style." And they thought I was crazy, and I admit it. But it's like, no. That, and then you swing out, and suddenly the motions went from, well, they're stretching different body groups, but why are they doing this to, now I can start to see what's going on. When you look at some of these Wing Chun, the circular fist strikes, they're interesting. But when you add the concept of a butterfly knife and you're getting these rapid cuts in, suddenly these kind of strikes start to make sense. The cat, if you do it right, you've got a great arm catch, the same motion. So what you do is you learn motions that give you the most opportunity. And Bajiquan is based on spear movements. Interesting. That explains the wideness of the stance and the circling. Fascinating. Thank you. And to get back to the chat so we don't lose the comments here, Kitty says, teaching, I don't know if I mentioned I'm a dance teacher, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 to 5 PST. At least my young adult classes. Fascinating. And I knew you were a dance instructor. I did not know your scheduling. And I think dance is wonderful for people to learn. I think it's a necessary skill set in both polite society and polite society and as a form of physical fitness. The fact that it has martial applications on top of it is just extra delight. And Foxy says, National Pizza Day. I had some. And ouch hot. Okay, don't burn yourself. But, oh my, these glasses are completely. I'll have to deal with that smudge later. So, what you want to do when you're looking at a style you're learning and the gear that you're pursuing, figure out roughly what you want out of a style. Okay? Oh, there goes my screen flickering again. I wonder if this cable's being bad. Anyway, the balance of these motions, the balance of what interests you should educate what you train in. Now, I do believe that there are certain how do I put this? Root styles, okay? And the simple sword is basically built primarily around the root style and growing up of how to make a 2 to 3 foot long edged weapon go. If you understand something like the simple sword, you can pick up any weapon of that vague style, especially if it's straight, and make it go. You can defend yourself with it. It may not understand you won't have the subtleties and the refinement of a more focused style, but you can make it go. This is why I think everyone needs to learn. You need to learn how to handle a knife if we're going through weapons. Again, and it doesn't matter so much what style, as long as it resonates with you, works with your body type, because some styles and systems are built around larger people, some are built around smaller people, some are built around capitalizing on strength, some are built on capitalizing on speed, some are literally timing or dexterity based. You need to research. This is the practical side of things. Now, if you know what you want, you can look at your style, look at the history. Then you pick gear that either is incredibly versatile, or you pick gear that is tailored to what you want. Now, if you're going versatile, I recommend going at least as early on as inexpensive as possible. So what you want is a sword simulating object, knife simulating axe, whatever. I'm not calling it a weapon simulating object because WSO means something else. Yeah. See, you make it point. A lot of the Wudang styles make much more sense if you put a jin in your hand. And see, that's something that the West does not really track with. And I think it's a tragedy of Western logic versus Eastern logic, where I will heavily condone the Eastern logic. We tend Western fighting very much outside of my approach to the simple sword, because I am heavily Eastern influenced as well, is very niche. They teach the systems tend to both, from what I have read, they teach the basics and then they lock on, and this is the only form that matters. And they get very, and I don't know if it's a propaganda, but it's that this is the only form that matters approach. It's this, I almost want to say, swordsmanship monotheism, it's very strange, because you have, okay, if you're going to learn to sword fight, you learn to sword fight this way. If you're going to learn to do hand-to-hand combat, for a long time it was basically boxing and Greco-Roman wrestling. Not a lot of kicking. You got kicking in things like Savant and of course kickboxing and things like that. So when you look at the evolution of hand-to-hand combat, especially in the West, the approach to it is very often geared towards and being more geared towards the mixed martial arts approach. So what you end up is looking for your three pillars of mixed martial arts. That being one of the original system, three pillars, very simple to understand, is boxing, kickboxing, and Greco-Roman wrestling. That gave you striking, legs, and then a ground game. And that, so now we look at it and we go, okay, we're going to combine these things. Now, you have BJJ, Muay Thai, and God, I can never remember the third. Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and then it gets, usually boxing creeps back in there because boxing really is undervalued. Few other things, but you see the pieces are starting to come together and they're evolving that way. But you have the MMA track of martial arts. Yeah, there are three. You have the Eastern track, and when you take Eastern martial arts, I have seen much of it is rated as much on how accurate to the style you are as it is to how effective the style is. And there isn't a lot of interest expressed in cross training. I do want to say this. Good Lord, Kitty, you must be in excellent shape. That is just incredible that you are able to do all that. I truly envy you your physicality. That's genuinely impressive. But getting back to what I was saying, the Eastern track, usually as it goes through a dojo, they usually pick one martial art and people kind of hold on to it. Very insular. The Taekwondo guys usually only fight with Taekwondo guys. The Shotokan karate guys usually fight only with the Shotokan karate guys. There you go. And then you have the combatives. And each of these are slowly, MMA eschews weaponry. They don't like it. They don't usually train in it. So we're just going to move that aside. The traditionals will work in terms of avoiding or disarming many times in ways that I personally feel give somebody a false sense of security. Weapon disarms are very hard to pull off under real-world conditions. Real-world stress makes it really, really hinky. It's not fun. I've had my share of that and then some, and it isn't something I like. It's better to be avoided. Now, when you get into combatives are usually have a military background and are meant to work in opposition to and with firearms, edged weapons, blunt weapons, alternative weapons, things like tasers, weirdness like that. Groats, the weird stuff. There are a lot of things that I think can be offset much better by simply maintaining vigilance. But that's a whole nother story when you get into self-defense. But it is interesting to see the re-evolution of incorporating martial arts and weapon systems. And I think it really really shows how history repeats. Because when you start looking at the heavy combatives, they have a very different approach than something like MMA or something like the traditional Eastern styles that are as much trying to preserve the style as develop self-defense techniques. What you have is the MMA eschews weaponry. Okay, traditional systems, you learn a lot, and then they usually will start to throw in something related to it. So, like, because I had been accused of being an Aikido guy so much, I had to look into it. I could see why. I naturally was walking down a very similar path as Aikido does, in that I trained in Boken, I trained in short staff, I trained in short stick. You start to look at that, and then you look at the Boken weaponry, the Aikido weaponry, and there's a lot of overlap. But understanding that is pulling the weapon back into the martial art, whereas modern combatives are whatever possible. Your goal is to make the space to deploy your weapon. And that's because you have a difference of goal. In MMA, you have a very precise goal, and most sport fighting, of defeating your opponent. You're also many times using weapons because actual boxing gloves do not get disillusioned. Actual boxing gloves are safety items for the fingers in the hand. Okay? They are not necessarily safety items for the person receiving the blow. Okay? Don't get your wires crossed. Because they allow you to hit much harder than you would otherwise, because bare knuckle, if you did it once, you'd break all your knuckles. You break your fingers. Literally, the boxers break. There's specific damage to the joints. Those are weapons. Those are hand-mounted maces. Don't get confused. Now, again, your usual Eastern dojo style teaching, when they allow weapons, again, it is about the tradition as much as the application. And you can find that when it's been peppered into things, your nunchucks, your some of the staff work, occasionally gym, but there aren't as many. Kung Fu subset practitioners are not as common as karate subset practitioners. And their goal is a mix of preserving the tradition, keeping people interested, and, of course, self-defense applicability, which is still break off, okay? And on that, they're doing the right. There's the most chance to catch yourself in that style, disengage and escape. Because in actual conflicts, at least in America, your legal requirement is to only do as much harm as necessary to allow yourself to escape and then take that opportunity. Okay? And I say that before we get into the combative styles, Krav Maga screaming to the front. Eskrima gets very in there. Eskrima is right between the two of the traditional systems that I think of and combatives. Eskrima is brutal. But their goal is to mess somebody up and possibly mess the next guy up and keep going on down the line until the problem is solved. It is a very aggressive mindset. And you'll find that when you look at the systems derived for actual militaries. They tend to be simple. They tend to be repeatable. They tend to be monstrously effective. and they tend to be lethal because they are fighting war. And that's where we run into philosophical conflict where civilian law and civilian mentality leads us to the process of minimal impact to provide survival. We're not taught, we're not encouraged to seek out and engage the enemy. Military systems are very much about seek out and engage the enemy. And while we don't, in many systems, like to talk about it, but marksmanship is a martial art. Stop, breathe. I know this is a big one. This is a big jump to hear on a channel like this. But marksmanship is a martial art. What was the primary weapon of the samurai going into conflict? Like going into a battle. What was the primary weapon? That big old long bow. Why? Because it's better to kill the enemy over there. However, do you think they had to practice the same motions to hit the same effect? Do you think the breath control, the focus, the clearing of the mind, the situational awareness is any different? Friends, it is not. Modern systems approach firearms the same way. However, everything that is taught to your baseline soldier, okay, servicemen in America, to cover all the branches so I don't get people mad at me, we'll say soldier, infantryman, whatever, has to be geared to be understandable by the dumbest, most inept person that you draft, coerce, convert, whatever you have to do to bring them into the military. They have to be able to handle it. So what happens is the style gets super, I almost want to say play tested. They have to make it idiot proof. And that's why they teach things the way they do. So that no matter how dumb you are, no matter how educated or uneducated, you can at least be functional. And from testing, they look for the people with more talent, and then they teach them other toys, other skills. And hi, Joe. Bye, Joe. I know he's not going to be here. Today's a very active green room day. And hi, Cindy. So, and I'm not ignoring the chat. I just want to get through this. The weapon mentality then goes into weapon retention, weapon deployment. When things go wrong, this is why. Oh, thank you. And Cindy is promoting my books. Thank you. And they then have to plan what to do when things go worse, because that is the military mindset. Everything's bad. It will get worse. Ruck up and embrace the suck. Well, that kind of mindset, that kind of training, neutralize the threat. Establish a perimeter, secure the perimeter, neutralize the threat. These kind of things that were drilled into the military, and to an extent, me by my dad, is a mentality that's radically different than the mindset of the lady who's trying to clutch her, I don't have my keys over here, but clutch her keys like Wolverine on the way to her car because she parked in the wrong spot. This is where you need the education and discernment. And all this is to bring you around to training in what will serve you as much as what will interest you. Now, if you go into marksmanship and you decide, yes, I love this. I love the smell of cordite in the morning. Please train regularly, train consistently. See classes, not just safety classes, but extended classes, because that's going to help you get better. And when you see things like 3-gun competitions and run and gun things, and even shooting sports, understand, and no one wants to say it, but those are martial arts. And very much, if we were going through the pillars of weapons we talk about. So I want to go all the way back to a comment that Thesis said. Carl gave me an idea on my first March stream on Wednesday. I mentioned always starting with weapon training with the staff, but I didn't have enough time to get into it. So he's doing the 4 pillars of what Chinese martial arts: staff, spear, Dao, and Jin. Great, great, great. Very stable creation right there. I like all of that. All of that is good. I add a few more because in my version of, if we're going to say the pillars of the Historical Fencing Guild, it would be one-meter stick, 2-meter stick, mass weapon, knife. Because if you train 1-meter stick gives you spear, and 2-meter stick gives you spear, and it gives you staff. 1-meter stick gives you spear and gives you some of staff. I personally like a 4-foot stick. I'm very fond of a Joe length staff, because a 4-foot stick, which is a little bigger than 3 meters, but it's okay, gives you great sword without too much dangling above or below. Spear, one-handed sword, it gives you a lot of options. And if you use pommel strikes, even small knives, that you're doing ice pick strikes. Okay? So, and then we get into mass weapons. Mass weapons are axes, clubs, bats, hammers, anything where there's weight on one end and a stick on the other. And then sharp, shiny things, usually knives. And those run from short knife to large knife. We could split that up, but it all basically fits into there. Then, we can look at what are the pillars of modern firearms as a martial art. It would be pistol, rifle, shotgun. All of these are expected to be either single action or semi-automatic. Now, with extra training, extra expense, you can get into things like automatic, you can get into things like explosives, etc. But the same mentality exists. Archery, longbow, short. You'd have a lot of people learn short bow because that was their birding bow. Relatively weak, you could bring down birds, small prey, so squirrels, rabbits, possums, to give American idea, small monkeys if need be, depending wherever you are. And then you go something like a longbow, which can take down a deer, can take down a man. A warbow is an advanced version. Whether you're going Mongolian riding warbow or the Japanese high arcing longbow, I can never remember the name of it. It just slips out my ear. There are always expanses. There's always more elaborate places you can go from these roots. But everybody should know the roots of these basic things. You don't have to be a gold medalist. You don't have to be the best of the best. Hopefully, you're better than the other guy. And the thing is, if you're not better than the other guy, then you should be good enough to assess, realize I am not better than the other guy, and alter your situation as needed. Because the primary thing of what we teach, what we do, what we're passionate about here as much as I love the history of it, and I love the history, I love looking at why did they switch to this? Why are they using these really weird wide blades? I mean, my personal favorite sword in the world is incredibly obscure, being the Spanish colonial broadsword. It also known as a bilbo because they were originally made in the Spanish town of Bilbo. They have a very distinct guard. They're shorter than a lot of the weapons, but a little bit wider to provide a slicier cut. Because by having the blade wider, they could make the edges narrower, which, especially on a double-edged weapon, can do some interesting things. It also, by making the blade shorter, while you lost a lot of reach, it was a lot more practical to carry. And remember, at this time, even at this time, these swords were sidearms. But even though it had that kind of choppy-ish blade, a delightful condensed rapier-style hilt with a keyhole grip and usually short, often angled quillions, keons. An elegant, simple weapon for small people. I am a small person. I like that. But I've also looked at that because that weapon fits my build, my interests, and my capabilities. It took a long time to get there. I still know how to make a katana go. I still know how to make an arming sword and a rapier of any style. And I can moderately make great swords go. I don't like to, but I can. Likewise with messers and Kriegmessers and other good things like that, and Kotzbloggers. I don't mind a Kotzblogger, although usually a Kotzblogger is a big knife to other people and a short sword to me because the way the weapon scales. I can usually get a double grip on a large size Kotzblogger, but you have to understand what interests you, what makes go. And of course, there's always room for exotic weapons, like Cindy's fans, like Foxy's rope dart. Exotic weapons are the peak, in my opinion, of what interests and delights us. What is not just possibly effective, but fun and reflects on us. I can make fan go. I cannot make pretty fan go the way Cindy can, but I learned how to use them rudimentarily enough to go because I am an excessive generalist. The best way I can explain it is in one of the Soul Calibers. I want to say 3, but don't quote me on it. There was a guy called Owlcaden. And Owlcaden had the basics of he didn't have some of the special moves, but he could have every single other fighter styles. And he was like the trainer dude. So you could train against a lightweight version of that. That's what I do. I can make things, make a lot of things go enough to make them go. It won't be pretty. It won't be right, but it will work. It will keep me alive and possibly make them not so much. And that's the goal. That's the reality of it. Because for me, much like the modern combatives, I'm always looking to transition. Okay? So the transitioning is all about usually gaining space, gaining control, gaining an escape route. It's a different mentality. So I don't train like the championship-minded individual. I can get you started on that path. And as you niche down, you find what you're interested in more and more and more till this is what you want. Then I can say, okay, look at this book, this DVD, this person. And if I don't know it, then I will put my nose to the grindstone and research to help you find where to grow into that circle, with the caveat, with the request, with the humble humble contract, the ask that if this works for you, please come back and pass it, not necessarily to me, but to everyone else in the guild. Anyone who's interested, please be there as a resource for them. That way, instead of taking most organizations I have found use experience and skill as a hierarchy, boom, 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 and as a commodity to trade for, status or whatever. I believe that the way I have grown found the most comfort, is by being able to walk and look at the different martial arts, the different styles, the different weapon systems, the different weapons themselves, and sort of, as a fat guy, and as a fat guy who really thought he was having Chinese today and didn't. I did have pizza though, so it's not a bad day. I can cherry pick. I can take what I want of this style and disregard the rest, because maybe my hand doesn't work that way, or I'm not physically strong enough, or the leverage doesn't go, whatever. Or it counters something I'm already hardwired to do. By going through it and sampling, I find myself. How do I make it better for me and everyone else? By having as broad and deep a buffet as possible. And I want you guys to always seek exposure in your training. Let me see. I'm sorry, we've got some comment dumps. And Cindy is promoting the heck out of me. So she's talking about the show, which I believe that is tonight's program right now. This is the channel is at Historical Fencing Guild. This is Thesis's Tea Room. Please follow Thesis on YouTube. Never mind the Furthermore, my other channel, where you guys can find weaponry. Not find weaponry, I'm sorry. Writing advice, support, accountability for the writers. I'm completely out of hair ties. It's driving me bonkers. Sorry about that. And a Patreon if you want to help keep the lights on around here. If you're chopping wood and make a mistake, you've made an accident. Yes, that was bad. I like it. I like that too, and I'm glad it came down for it. Yumi, thank you. And see, I will tell you something else about me. And this goes to the combination of my learning disabilities and my processing disorders. So I have a lot of sequencing issues. So dyslexia, dyscalculia, things like that. I have short-term memory loss. So I will remember the weapon, shape, size, everything about it, the balance, the technique. Think, you ask me its name, it's going right out the window. I can teach you how to do all sorts of things. You ask me what the name of that move is, I don't know. The name's vocabulary constantly falls off of my head when I'm absorbing this kind of info. I'm not sure why. It's like my brain just refuses to prioritize the vocabulary. So it's taken me a long time both to be able to fully express what I wanted to and to understand from a perspective of comparison. But because it's fuzzy like that, and the connections that I have between things everything is connected a little bit. And the disconnects aren't as obvious to me, and the connections are a little more obvious. And I can shuffle things around. So that's why I'll look at some katana techniques, okay? And I'll look at some Zweihander techniques and go, you're doing the same thing. And that's how I've gotten to where I am. Where the simple sword is rooted in my own style is literally looking at all these different martial arts and different systems and things and going, Okay. They all say, do this. That can't be a wrong answer. Um, I'm sorry, I saw the chat. My brain started to spin up, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute too, because we're not going to leave quite yet, because you made an interesting comment. But looking at what works across the board and what is ubiquitous. That's a great word. Ubiquitous across styles. These are what you need to know. Okay. Any analysis of any system, the first thing you need to know is this line where everything applies. Okay. And when you get that chunk, then you can move on individually. But everybody needs to know that. So what do I mean? I'm trying to put this in a perspective you can grab real fast. Internet browsers. We've got Chrome, we've got Edge, we've got Brave, we've got Opera, we've got all these with different tweaks and button locations and things. Okay, all internet browsers. But you know, almost all of you, that it brings up there should be a text bar at the top. And you can type in www.google.com and hit enter. And that will take you to Google. That is ubiquitous across the internet browsers. That is something that applies to all of them. So if you learn that, that's a good thing to learn first. And then figure out what feels better later. Even if you're using Linux or you're using Mac, there's usually something like a command bar. Windows used to have more of it, but where you can type in tick, 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 tick. It used to be DOS. Blessed is DOS. You find what's ubiquitous. And that will usually give you 80% of most of the styles, between 60 and 80. And then from there, you don't have to analyze the whole thing that you're seeing. You just have to analyze what are they doing different. Like one of my favorite games in the world, what's wrong with this picture? Then once you find what's wrong, what's different, you ask yourself, now, how are they doing that? And why are they doing that? And that's where you start getting answers, my friend. And this is not me just teaching you guys and discussing the basics of what we do. This is teaching you guys the basics of what I do. This is well into the elementary school for sword masters range, because this is how you do the analysis, how you get to the position where you can, and then what you do with it from there. Now, this is interesting because Kitty says Foxy's been learning Van too. It seems to be fitting her better than swords or spears that Thesis wanted to teach her. Works better for me, yes. I've been working with it when I exercise. What's beautiful, Foxy, is as you learn Fan, there will be points in it that are the exact same guards as sword guards. They're there. The footwork will carry over. One of the great things that intimidates so many people getting into what we do, learning how to sword fight, learning axe throwing, whatever, is the fear of, look at all I have to learn. No, guys. It isn't that nuanced. Well, not nuanced. It isn't that foreign. if you can find elements of what you already know that feed into it. So this is why someone like Kitty is going to excel at certain styles of art. And see, that now we're getting somewhere. This makes me happy. This delights my black little heart that normally has to yell at people Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Foxy says a lot of the things I learned with sword and staff carry over well to fan, but fan just suits me better size and ability wise. Yes, many times yes. I find that delightful because you just took what I was trying to angle and you went, no, it goes the opposite too. Yes, reciprocity. Which I know I mispronounced, but I'm okay with it. Of skills. What you needed was something shorter, something lighter, that wasn't as strength-based. Because, while we love them, it is very difficult for large people who have a measure of reach and strength to convey the same weapons and techniques and have them be effective for smaller people. And one of the neat things I've found is I've done it too. I've gone, okay, how long is your arm to your weapon? Okay, great. Figure out the ratio. How long is my arm to my weapon? How much does that weigh? How much does this weigh? And I have made custom trainers to prove a point. I don't know where it went, but I made, like, if you were going to hunt yokai or something, this monstrous PVC trainer. I mean, we don't want to talk. I'm not going to talk about how much I spent on it. Fortunately, a lot of it was reclaimed PVC. But I upped the size, I doubled the size of the girth because, I thought, so make the girth double. Make the length double, the width double, make the weight double, and then hand it to the guy. And watch them have to adjust what they do. And that isn't a shot at big people, and it's not a shot at Thesis at all, because I'm very proud of what Thesis does. I'm very impressed with what Thesis does. But it is a way to gain the perspective. So if you were ever really wanting to experience it, Thesis, take a weapon, any weapon you hand Foxy, right? Look at her arm length relative to the weapon, and because you're usually making your own. I think this might be a neat exercise for you to do. I think it might make excellent content on your channel, and it might be something that will help others realize it, because I want people to be good teachers, because you have to do the same thing as a small person scaling up for a bigger person. Okay? Take whatever one-handed sword that you've handed Foxy the most. Figure out the ratio of your arm length to hers and extend it by that much. And then whatever that percentage, roughly, this is not terribly accurate, but roughly, do the weight the same too. The weight will actually, I want to say cube, if I remember my math, but it's at least enough to spread the point to you. It will feel very interesting. And let's see. We've got some comments. A lot of things I learned. Okay, there we are. She has a couple different fans from DVD. One is that MA Wind fan, which is more dynamic, and hard Tai Chi fan, which is softer and more fluid. Excellent. Watch the styles. Learn them. Figure out what feels better for you. And if you are learning it for you and you're not learning it like Cindy is learning it for competition. So she has to embrace and embody the style. If you're learning it for functionality and health, figure out what works best. Don't be afraid to hodgepodge and adjust. I don't have to worry about jabbing myself or drop things as much, so I focus on what I'm doing. It's about a forearm on me. That's wonderful. And I'm sorry. I think we'll find that let me do this and this progression and understanding of each other's perspective makes it makes a huge difference. And as an instructor, understanding at least a piece of that experience, even though it will be less difficult for you than it is for them because you're coming with a vast amount of knowledge and experience to it, will make you a better trainer. I've considered making an LK Chen roaring dragon type longsword trainer just to see if I could handle a 4.5-foot sword. I'm sure you can. I have no doubt that you can, because I can handle where's my dragon fang? An Odachi that's as tall as I am. I can make it go. I've handled Montantes that are actually larger than that. So it is doable, but understanding how it catches on the ground for you, versus how your guard changes to keep the tip off the ground, it will really change how you process your students if you are able to both keep the simulacrum. Sorry, my speech impediments bad today. The simulacrum of their weapon properly scaled, weighted, and balanced to where their stuff is. If you can do that, it is something it will really elevate. It will educate you a lot. And I would have a hard time keeping it off the ground for sure. That's why when John Miner it was a tongue-in-cheek gift, and I don't know where that went. He gave me the Sting sword. He gave me a polypropylene trainer of Sting. And he's like, I got this dagger trainer. I think you'll like it. And it was Sting. And he handed it to me. And I could get both my hands around it. And he just laughed and laughed and laughed. He goes, you really are a hobbit, aren't you? Compared to you, yes. Yes, that scales. This is a short sword, nearly an arming sword on me. And I love the thing. I wouldn't mind getting a second. I don't know if that would make me too powerful, though. Leaf blades are very happy things in my universe. My point being, by exploring the scaling, you will have a different experience. And after you've made one thesis, take your weapon, whatever weapon you've been using, scale like you are Foxy, and you make your big one. Take your primary one, scale it down to Foxy size, and hand it to her and see if she doesn't like it better. See if it doesn't fit. And yes, leaf blades are absolutely beautiful. They're one of the oldest forms of sword. I adore them. So I really would love to see, and it's not an experiment I can do because I don't have anyone shorter than me without borrowing a child to do the scaling. You understand? I've done it before because I have had people who are shorter than me, but I understood, okay, give me your measurements. Bang, bang, bang. This is why. Your weapon has to fit you. Your style has to fit you. Does that mean other styles may have an advantage over you? Yes, they will. In physical combat, before we end this program, I'm going to say something that will, shock him. Size will always matter. As much as I love Yoda, size matters not. Size always matters. As a wise man once said, God created man, Colonel Colt made them equal. That means is the firearm is the great equalizer of men. It's a terrible thing because one can learn to be very deadly to a great many people much faster and much easier than they can through melee weaponry. Simple truth. But what fits you will work better for you. And well, I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. So I think, and see, that's the thing. Were you handing her live steel? Because she should not, no new person should be drilling or training with live steel. 1, for safety, and 2, for the psychological. And that can scare people off. One of the scariest things I ever did, it shows up on a video I shot with Swords Age, where he went to do a demo, and I thought he was going to pull out one of his wooden trainers, and he was using a Hanwei live steel gin. And while it wasn't edged, the tip was very much a sharp tip. And I literally probably saved my own life with a pinch parry. And see, only. Take whatever weapon, measure it against your arm and figure out how much it is, and then measure it to hers. I'm going to tell you, you're going to come up with a major, major difference, and it will shock you. And if she wants to try again, she'll learn better. I'm serious. Now, Cindy says, I will be performing the drummer part of the line dance tomorrow and Sunday and the Wu style fan form and Wu style fast form with dual sword dance, that right side Saturday solo version Sunday. Excellent. Unfortunately, I don't know someone who can wield the camera, but might record Shadow Fist. But someone might record the Shadow Fist. We'll record from Shadow Fist. So watch the FB channel. Do you have a tripod you could just mount a camera on? And not for training, but it was sharp steel. It was gauging whether she could handle the weight or size. For training these collapsible gin. Okay, I know what you're talking about then. And yeah, the weight, many times you have to start with a lighter weapon to train them up to be able to hold the weight. And there's no shame in that. There were a lot of people who came through my training and they started with 3/8 inch or 1/2 inch wooden dowels with simple knuckle guards put on them because they were lighter. I put a weight to keep the balance, or a chunk of wood to keep the balance of these rickety looking things. But the weight was much lighter so that they didn't have to fight the weight so that they could learn the form. And then once they did the form so much they didn't feel that in their hand, I could, build them up to the next weight level and have them drill with that. It's part of the process. So that's wonderful. That being said, I do need to go. So I want to thank you all for a lovely program and insightful chat as always. If you have, please like, share, and subscribe to this. If I got permission, I would post that video on my channel just to show people some of the mini forms I created. Who would you need that? Well, I hope you can get that. We'll talk more later. Have a nice night, everyone. And with that, guys, please do your drills. Keep your eyes open. Be kind to yourself and each other. And as always, thank you for supporting your local swordmaster. I will see you next week here for another episode of the Historical Fencing Guild's live stream. As weather improves, expect some other things. I'm not saying other things about anything, but expect some other things. See you soon. Toodles.